Chapter 6, A certain guy takes me to the highest hill.
So, where will we be going first?
Asked Lane.
I'm thinking we'll go around to various tournaments and hope to find a strong thunder user.
Replied Jack.
Wait, do you remember the tournament long time ago with John? There were a few element users there, and one was that new general the other day.
Lane raised an eyebrow.
I guess we'll go check him out.
Lane jumped onto a ledge in the mountain and crawled into a venter's fire. Jack took the waterway and they both went off.
Puro!
Shouted Zen.
Look!
Karo looked and noticed a group of black-coated thieves. Karo silently kneeled down and walked behind the tree, slowly signaling a strategy to Zen and Shin. They jumped up in separate trees and waited for further instruction. Seconds later, they both came back down with hands around their mouths. Haydn and Zakuzur had them.
Well, looks like we got ourselves some hunters,
said Haydn. Zakuzur let out a chuckle. Karo was kicked out from some bushes by Raigu.
You ran into the raw group, my friend,
he said. Zakuzur stomped on the ground and caused it to infulge around the three. Light was seen breaking out of it slowly and eventually blew open into a powerful blast of lightning.
Just what we needed,
said Jack, swooping down from a mirror placed high above them. Jack pulled out two elegant blades, about half the size of Lane's, but with different shape and some designs. Lane walked up and pulled out his blade. Karo looked confused.
What exactly do you guys want?
Jack whispered.
We need you for something. Just trust us. This gang is nothing compared to us.
Karo nodded and signaled Shin and Zen. They walked up and stood near Karo.
So do you three hope to fight us?
Asked Lane. Haydn's eyes narrowed. Reaching for his back, Haydn pulled out a large three-bladed scythe and rushed at Lane. Raikou flipped in to help while Zakuzur pulled out a double-sided halberd. Haydn struck with speed and landed multiple hits on Lane. Lane finally backed off in panting rush.
You're pretty good.
Pretty good.
Raikou and Jack were in the air. All that was seen was Raikou back-flipping off with Jack's face knocking him down next to Lane.
Yay, they are.
Lane and Jack's eyes blew and they rushed back at their foes. Karo, Shin, and Zen were all fighting Zakuzur. Lane's and Jack's speed was suddenly faster now. Lane gave 3 swings but all missed. Unexpectedly he threw a large fireball at Haydn, smack kicking him back. Among the flames that had passed, Lane emerged from them and slashed at Haydn. Haydn managed to parry this quickly and continue. Jack jumped over Raikou and kicked the ground, causing a small pathway of ice to spread around the field. The path broke into more and more. Raikou ran at Jack and gave a nice clean slice through the middle of him, cutting him in half. Haydn flung his side at Lane. Lane ducked and did a 360 kick along the ground, causing a wall of flame to grow around them. Lane disappeared and merged with the flame. The ring of flame grew together in one side and turned into the top half of Lane in the form of fire. The giant figure pulled out fire shaped like his blade. The split Jack broke into ice and appeared all over the field as over 20 Jacks now. They all smiled and spun around. The ice on the ground grew into large tidal waves of ice heading straight towards Raikou. Raikou jumped back but was immediately stopped by a wave that came from behind. Both waves crushed together and froze Raikou inside of it. Jack's eyes blew and then his blade. He flashed through the chunk of ice in the image of 10 Jacks at blinding speed and came out the other end as one. The ice blew up and shattered all over in a gigantic Arctic blast. Lane's fire shape smashed into Haydn and exploded into a large blast of fire. The field was now covered in thick mist and smoke. Haydn and Raikou looked around alertly. 2 kicks came out of nowhere and kicked the 2 together, sending them flying and sliding into Zakuzur. He jumped over the 2 and let them smash into the tree beyond. Karo, Shin, and Zen jumped aside as they noticed a large ball of blue and red light spawn from the haze. The light grew in strength and then shot at full speed towards Zakuzur. His spear broke into two and transformed into two objects that looked like high-tech guns. From the top came a purple charge of light suck into the barrel of the gun, then flashed out in full intensity. The three forces merged and caused a large flash of light, causing a large boom of force, and everyone blinded for a good 10 seconds. When the light dimmed, Raikou, Haydn, and Kakuzuo were gone. The thing they were stealing was left behind.
That's it. Mission accomplished,
said Zen excitedly. Shin smiled and nodded. Karo walked up to it. It was a stone with a red gem in the middle and ancient scripture painted all over.
It was from an old museum. I don't know why they'd want it,
said Shin. Lane looked at it and narrowed his eyes.
It's...
thought Lane.
Hiro, who gave you this mission?
The museum, of course. The reward is $15,000,
replied Karo.
We'll go take it now then,
said Lane. He walked on, letting the others know he wanted them to follow. After about 5 minutes of walking, Jack jogged up to Lane.
Why are you so interested in that stone?
He whispered.
When I was undercover with Shu, I found out he was planning on ruling the world, and he plans to do it with these stones. I saw Genma get pushed out of a 5-story building and smashed into a rock when Shu only had one of those stones. He said if he gathers all 10 he could open the forbidden gate. We got one now, so as long as we keep it hidden, Shu won't be able to use it. We can't let that museum keep it. It can't be trusted.
I agree,
replied Jack. They continued on and arrived in town in another 40 minutes. They slowly approached the museum.
Hiro, you'll go in, get the reward, then get out. Me and Jack will take care of the rest,
said Lane. Karo nodded and led Zen and Shin in.
We have it, sir,
he said proudly.
Ah, good. Very good. Come here and I'll give you the reward.
The man walked them over to a room. When they all got in, the man sneaked back out and locked the door. The man gave a giggle.
You fools.
He turned a dial and the whole room turned red inside. It was a giant oven.
Gad. An oven. What?
Said Karo as he kneeled down. The man turned around but was cut off by Lane and Jack.
An assistant of Shu perhaps?
Asked Lane. The man backed up and put his hand on the dial.
How many closer and the heat goes to 6,000.
Jack smiled and shot a ball of ice at the dial. His hand was now frozen to it. The man growled and threw 3 shuriken out. The first flew by, missing, and Lane and Jack caught the other 2, then throwing it back at his chest. The man fell to the floor and hung off his arm. Lane walked up and gave a slice to the heavy door. A small cut was made and he pressed his hand against it. His body grew red as he absorbed all the constant heat to keep the 3 alive while Jack fiddled with the lock.
Got it,
he said.
Then why isn't the door opening?
Asked Lane. Jack sent a blade through the electronics and blew it all up, sending sparks everywhere.
Got it,
says Jack again. Lane kicked the door open and out came the 3. Lane melted the ice on the dial and turned it down to 0.
Why couldn't you have just done that in the first place?
Explained Zen.
Well, if we approached, he would have set the temperature to 6,000. You would have died before we could turn it down.
Jack stabbed the assistant and threw him in the oven. He closed the door and set the temperature to 6,000.
If he doesn't work here, who'd know he's missing?
Said Jack.
Well, maybe if you got the...
said Lane before Jack pulled out the stone. Lane gave a puff and turned around.
Well, Shu would notice,
he said.
Good,
replied Jack.
He'd suspect that those thieves had it anyway.
Lane nodded and signaled Karo over to him.
Listen, we need you. We suspect you're the next elemental. You may not realize it, but we think you have the potential to unlock its power.
Karo raised an eyebrow and laughed.
My thunder skills are mediocre, hardly useful at all,
he said. Lane shook his head.
Follow me.
They walked outside.
Hold your hand out and focus your thunder to it,
informed Lane. Karo did this and a small pathetic ball of thunder emerged.
Okay, now try to concentrate it with everything you've got.
Caro squeezed his eyes shut and the ball grew bigger. It didn't get much bigger, but for a split second, it got a little bigger, but exploded on Caro right after.
You just need some training. If after this training neither of us believe you are, then you can go back to your normal life. Just attempt, please.
Caro looked at Lane for a second, then to the ground.
Sure.
He said lightly. Caro walked back in and met with Zen and Shin.
I'll be gone for a while. I've got some stuff to do. I'll be back. I promise it, so don't forget me.
Zen and Shin looked at each other then back at Caro.
Sure.
Said Shin and they all nodded. Jack, Lane, and Caro walked off.
Kuro, thanks.
Said Lane.
Huh?
Replied Caro.
You gave Jack that stone for the medicine, right?
Oh yeah. That was for you?
Lane nodded.
It saved my life.
Caro smiled and said.
Well then, no problem, my friend.
They walked on and on silently until they finally reached the ocean.
I can't take you in this way, so Jack will take you.
Said Lane as he hurled a fireball towards the top of the island mountain. Lane gave a simple quick salute and dissolved off into the wind. Caro raised an eyebrow.
I recommend holding your breath.
Said Jack as he grabbed Caro and jumped into the water. There was now a current of water dragging Caro faster than he was used to. After 30 seconds the current splashed up out of the hole and out came Caro and Jack. Seconds later a fireball steamed down from the ceiling vent and turned back into Lane.
So, let's get this started.
Exclaimed Lane. For a good month they trained and trained inside of the mysterious mountain.